Welcome back to Hot Air with me, Joshua Robert. And today we are picking up right where we left off in the previous episode. And in the previous episode, we dove into why the world feels so heavy and how it really affects us emotionally. So if you want a little bit more insight as to why your brain freaks the fuck out in this constant world of chaos that we live in, whether it's financial stress or the imminent threat of World War III, or just all the crazy doom scrolling we do on social media. You want to learn why your brain reacts that way, why you get anxious and stressed, all that jazz. Go back, listen to part 1, because in this episode, we're moving right along, and we are going to take the details that we learned about the darkness of the crazy world that we live in and try to filter through it with some tips and tools, because as hard as it is sometimes, we can't just live in bed with the curtains closed, falling down that Twitter hellscape and fearing for our lives. Every once in a while, maybe, with a few good snacks and some Dominoes by your side, but we can't live like that. Before we jump in, make sure you're following me on Instagram and TikTok at _hotairpod for plenty of bonus content, which has been lacking lately as I have moved and have been building this new podcast studio. But we're going to get back to way more content as soon as we get into April. So hopefully be showing some more behind the scenes stuff, a little bit more interaction in theory and some meme level sanity checks. And also head over to hotairwithjoshuarobert.com where you can shop my merch, submit your listener stories and topic suggestions for future episodes. So now that we know how chaotic everything is, let's get fucking healed, okay? Let's hit it. Now, technically, this is part 5, okay? Because we're continuing. So I'm going to say part 5, main character energy versus global chaos. So as I said in the last episode, we did talk a little bit about protecting your brain and not letting the news cycles completely run your life like an unpaid intern with way too much power. But we need to have a slightly deeper, slightly spicier conversation. And this is the idea that a lot of people are quietly carrying around right now. And it's the feeling that it's somehow wrong to feel good when the world is not good. Have you ever been having such a great day, a genuinely good, kick-ass day, and maybe you're in a great mood, you got good sleep, you're productive, you're feeling cute, you're vibing, your tan is on point, you put just the right amount of bronzer on, and then you open up your phone and you feel guilty because you see oh, right, everything is terrible. People are dying. I should not be enjoying myself this much. I think to some degree that was obviously a dramatized version of it, but to some degree, we can all kind of relate to that. We feel like if our friend is sick or somebody we know lost a family member, that we are not allowed to be excited and happy about our own lives. And we know the feeling. It kind of can be subtle sometimes, but it's there. It's the underlying belief that in order to be a good, aware, empathetic person, you need to be at least a little bit weighed down by what's happening in the world. If you're too happy, too relaxed, too unbothered, that you're doing something wrong. And I want to challenge that just a little bit, respectfully, but also firmly, because carrying the emotional weight of the entire world does not make you more compassionate. It just makes you exhausted. And there is actually research around something called empathy fatigue that I've touched on before. And it's sometimes referred to as compassion fatigue. I talked about this a gazillion episodes ago. It's often studied in healthcare workers and therapists, teachers, people who are constantly exposed to other people's pain. And what they found is that when you are repeatedly exposed to distressing information without enough time or resources to process it, your ability to feel empathy actually starts to decrease. You don't become more caring. You become numb and detached or overwhelmed. And I can kind of stand by that because this podcast, there's eras that it goes through, like I'm fucking Taylor Swift or something. I get really, really worked up. Like I'm constantly reading the news. I'm constantly trying to educate myself and thinking that that makes me more in the know and able to deliver the news to you listeners, or because I'm being passionate about it, it means I'm doing something about it. But at some point it's just like, oh, Trump did another ridiculous thing. Oh, there was another attack fueled by racism. Oh, they're trying to take LGBTQ plus rights away. Oh, and it just becomes, oh, like it doesn't even matter. You're just numb to it. You're numb, detached, and overwhelmed. And now in the age of social media, this doesn't just happen to professionals. It's happening to everyone. I'm sure you know what I mean, because you are constantly being exposed to other people's struggles and tragedies and crises all day, every day. So if you've ever felt like you care so much that it starts to feel like too much, that's really not being dramatic. That is your brain hitting its limit. And here's the part that might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but it's important. You are not responsible for emotionally carrying everything that you are aware of. You just are not. It's not possible. Awareness does not equal responsibility for emotional absorption. And I think a lot of us have blurred that line. We think that if we don't feel deeply affected by everything, we're being insensitive. But the reality is, you can care without collapsing. You can be aware without being overwhelmed. You can stay informed without sacrificing your own mental stability. And this is where I want to introduce a concept that everyone likes to call main character energy. And it sounds like dramatic at first, but like once you get used to it, I'm like, yes, I live for friggin' main character energy. It is so TikTok coded. Stay with me if you haven't heard of it before. It's highly unlikely that you don't know what I'm talking about. But main character energy is not about being self-centered or ignoring the world. It's about recognizing that your life is still happening in the middle of everything else, that your day-to-day experiences, your goals, your relationships, your happiness, they still matter. I think what happens for a lot of people is that when the world feels heavy, they subconsciously put their own life on pause. Like, I'll feel good later. I'll focus on my goals later. I'll enjoy things later when everything calms down. But when exactly is everything calming down? I ask you and myself and the Lord Jesus every day. But like, be honest, it's never going to calm down. If we are waiting for the world to be perfectly stable and peaceful and predictable before we allow ourselves to feel joy, we're going to be waiting forever. It's like saying that you're waiting for the right time to go after your dream job, or you're waiting for the right time to book that trip. Before you know it, sorry, you're on your deathbed and you didn't get your dream job. You didn't find that relationship. You didn't go on a trip. You didn't wear that slutty outfit you wanted to wear. The best time is now. And clearly, there has never been a time in history where everything was calm and perfect all at once. There has always been something happening somewhere. The difference now is that we are aware of it all of the time. So if you tie your personal happiness to the state of the world, you're essentially giving up your ability to feel good altogether. And we are not doing that. You're allowed to have a good day, even if something bad is happening somewhere else. You are allowed to laugh, to enjoy your life, to go out, to create, to rest, to feel peace without checking if the world has given you permission. And this isn't just a feel-good mindset thing. This actually matters for your mental health. Positive emotions like joy, gratitude, and calm are not just nice to have, they are essential. They help regulate your nervous system, reduce stress hormones, and improve resilience. There's research from psychologists like Barbara Fredrickson showing that positive emotions actually help broaden your thinking. They improve problem solving and build psychological resilience over time. So when you allow yourself to just simply experience joy, you're not being irresponsible. You're actually giving your brain what it needs to function better in a stressful world. And let's be real for a second. Some of us have a habit of over-identifying with struggle. Like if things are too calm, too easy to go, we get sus. Something ain't right. We're like, wait, what the fuck is wrong? Why am I not stressed out? Should I be worried about something? I talked about that in terms of love and dating. When there's not that roller coaster ride and things are just like kind of chill and you're like, wait, this is unfamiliar. Calm is unfamiliar. So then we go looking for something to stress out about. The same applies in almost every life situation. But guess what? When we look for something to freak out about, we find it because there's always going to be something everywhere to freak out about. But peace is not something you need to earn by suffering first. Okay? I'm going to say it again. Peace is not something that you need to earn by being stressed, overwhelmed, or constantly aware of everything that is going wrong around you. You're allowed to just like have it, have a little piece, okay, honey? Have a piece of cake and have a little piece and sit down and chill out. And this is where boundaries, my favorite thing, come back into play, but in a slightly different way. Not just boundaries with information, but boundaries with your emotional energy. You get to decide how much you take on. You get to decide what you engage with, and you get to decide when to step back. Like it's as simple as saying, I'm going to put my phone down now. I'm taking my energy back. I'm not going to cry over these terrifying videos on the internet anymore. Because if you don't do that, the world will take as much as you are willing to give. And for a lot of people, what they give is absolutely everything. So part of stepping into this main character energy is recognizing that your role is not to absorb all the chaos. Your role is to stay grounded enough that you can actually live your life in the middle of it. You can still function in the middle of all this chaos. And I think that there's something really powerful just about that, just about living in the chaos and getting shit done. Still being able to go to the gym if that's what you like, doing your little at-home spa days, being able to go out and socialize with friends, still going on dates, watching your favorite shows without catastrophizing the end of the world. It's about choosing to create moments of normalcy and joy and stability, even when things around us feel so uncertain. Because those moments really matter. It's very easy to just get home and be like, oh my God, everything's awful. I'm not going to do anything. And you just kind of give up. But like the moments where you can find that joy in the chaos are really important. They're not trivial. They're not selfish. They're not disconnected. They are what keep you going. And here's a line I want you to remember because it's simple, but it hits. The world might be chaotic, but your entire existence does not have to be. You can have routines, you can have structure, you can have things that feel safe and consistent and grounding. You can go on a walk, you can have coffee with a friend, you can work towards your goals, you can laugh at something stupid. All of that is still allowed. And in a weird way, it's actually kind of like rebellion because when everything around you is trying to pull you into stress, choosing to protect your peace is a power move. It's saying, I see what's happening. I'm aware of it and I care. It's important to still care, but I'm not going to let it completely consume me. And that's not denial. That is just strength. So if you've been feeling guilty for having good moments, for not being constantly tuned into everything, for choosing to step back sometimes, I need you to let that go. You are not doing anything wrong. You are doing what you need to do to stay functional, grounded, and sane in a world that is objectively a lot and continues to become more of a lot. And the more you allow yourself to do that, to chill out, the more capacity you actually have to show up in meaningful ways. So I think this message can kind of get a bit misconstrued. It's not ignoring everything that's happening in the world. It's not saying, oh, well, I don't care there's a war happening basically everywhere. I don't care that Congress is just closed the government and spending all of our taxpayer dollars and we're just here paying for taxes. Like you're allowed to be stressed out about that stuff. It's not ignoring the things that are going on around you. It's giving them a little bit of worry and then reserving some of that energy that you might normally filter into stress and anxiety and chaos and putting it elsewhere to help you feel good. Because if you do want to make change, if you are one of those people like myself that is like, I'm going to become a politician or I'm going to become president. I've said it before, I'm Canadian. I can't, but like, I will find a way. In theory, in my mind, I will find a way. Just like I'm going to win the Powerball jackpot or whatever it's called. If you give all of your energy to chaos and you're someone who genuinely wants to help, you cannot help make positive change if you're focusing in on all the craziness. You still have to take care of yourself. So basically, what it all means is you can't pour from an empty cup. And right now, a lot of people are running on empty, specifically some gas tanks, because I just filled up my gas today and it was $25 more than normal. And that adds up because I do a lot of driving to work, but we're running on empty because we care too much. So we're putting the cup down. We're going to refill it with things that make us feel good, and we're going to protect it just a little bit more. You can still pour that cup out into the chaos, but just don't empty it. And then we show up from a place that is actually sustainable because burnout is not helping anyone, and neither is you being one headline away from a breakdown. So yes, the world be crazy. But you still get to be the main character in your life. You're not a background actor, okay? Your life is still about you. And honestly, that is the whole fucking point of being here on the planet. Part 6, tools to stay grounded that actually work. Okay, so we just had a moment there. I feel like I just went on a rampage, and a lot of my stuff is scripted, but part 5 was very unscripted. And I was just, just word vomit. I feel like I had to get some of that out, but we had our moment. We've acknowledged the chaos. We validated your feelings and my feelings, I think. And, we're moving on with our main character energy. And I love that journey for us. But now we need to get practical, because it's one thing to understand why you feel overwhelmed. It's another thing to actually do something about it. It's great to be like, oh, well, that makes sense. That's why my brain works that way. But you have to apply some tools so you're not always spiraling, right? It's about doing something in real time when your brain starts to go cuckoo and your nervous system is like, we are not okay. So we're getting into the tools, not fluffy, not the just think positive kind of energy. No, we're talking real, usable, in the moment tools that help you regulate, reset, and come back to center when everything feels like too much. And I want to start with something very simple, but very underrated, which is naming what you're feeling. Something I've said before, but I will reiterate it until everyone on the planet is doing it, or at least everyone who listens to the pod. And it sounds very basic. It's like, wow, groundbreaking. We're identifying our emotions, but there is actual science behind it. There's research out of UCLA showing that when you label your emotions, it actually reduces activity in the amygdala, which is the part of your brain responsible for fear and stress responses. At the same time, it increases activity in the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that helps you think logically and regulate your reactions. So basically, science aside, when you say, I'm feeling anxious or I'm overwhelmed right now, you are literally helping your brain shift out of panic mode and into processing mode. It is that simple. And the key here is to keep it simple, not, oh my gosh, I'm spiraling. Everything is terrible. The world is ending. Just, I am feeling overwhelmed. That's it. Name it, acknowledge it, and do not judge it. A lot of the time, what makes emotions feel worse is not the emotion itself. It is when we resist it. It's the why do I feel like this? Why am I stressed? I don't want to be anxious. I shouldn't feel this way. This is too much. And that resistance just adds another layer of stress or whatever other emotion that you're focusing on. So step 1 is name it. Do not fight it. Now, once you've done that, we move into one of my favorite tools, which is the control versus uncontrollable list. And this one is exactly what it sounds like. When your brain is overwhelmed, everything starts to feel equally urgent and equally out of control. So what you do, you mentally or physically, if you want to write things down physically, if you're feeling organized, separate things into 2 categories: what I can control and what I cannot control. What you cannot control: global events, other people's actions, the economy, breaking news, basically most of what is stressing you out. I oddly feel weird saying you can't control it, because I am the type of person who thinks that we can control it by becoming politicians, becoming activists, by making that change. But in the right now, like, I'm not going to be able to stop the war that's happening, or I'm not going to be able to lower gas prices. I still got to go to school for poli-sci and figure out where to start if I want to start doing those things. But you create a list of what you cannot control. Then what you can control, which is your actions, your routine, how much information you consume, how you respond, what you focus on in your immediate environment. And the reason that this works is because anxiety thrives on feeling out of control. So when you bring your focus back to what is actually within your influence, even in very small ways, it helps your brain calm down. It's like, okay, maybe everything is not on fire. Maybe it's just like a cute little bonfire, but not the entire fucking city on fire. Maybe there are a few things that we can handle. And those small things definitely matter, and they probably matter more than you think. Now let's talk about your body for a second, because we can't ignore the physical side of this. Your brain and your body are clearly not separate. If you're listening to this with your ears, your brain is inside of your body working together. So when your brain is stressed, your body is stressed. And sometimes the fastest way to calm your mind is actually to calm your body first. So here is another super simple Very effective tool, and I can already feel your eye rolls here, but that tool is breathing. And I know every wellness person on the internet has told you to breathe. And you're like, why? I've been breathing my whole life. That's why I'm standing still. Like, thank you, I'm breathing. But there is a difference between just like passive breathing and intentional breathing. One of the easiest techniques is something called physiological sighing, which is basically a double inhale through your nose, followed by a slow exhale through your mouth. So it's like 2 sips, like, right? That was good, right? I feel calm already. So I actually do. Maybe I'm imagining things, but studies have shown that this can actually help reduce stress levels very quickly by signaling to your nervous system that you are safe. So again, it's in through your nose, 2 quick 1-second inhales, and then a long exhale. Sometimes I'll do the 4 count. So I'll inhale for 4, I'll hold my breath for 4, I'll exhale for 4, and then I pause for 4, and I do it again. There's all kinds of different timings that you can Google, but do those exercises a few times, and you'll feel that your body starts to settle. Like it physically works. And another one is just slowing your breathing down. Longer exhales than inhales, because longer exhales activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest mode. That's the opposite of fight or flight. So you inhale, but you exhale longer. So maybe you inhale for 4, you exhale for 8. And again, it's not about becoming a meditation guru. If you want to do that, by all means, but that's not the vibe here. This is about giving your body a signal that it can relax for a hot minute. Something that is both incredibly simple, but also wildly effective, which is movement. When you're anxious and overwhelmed, your body is holding on, literally holding on to that stress. It might be in your shoulders, your neck, your fists. It's like energy that has nowhere to go. So moving your body helps release it. And I am not talking about a full workout unless you really want to. The gym is my therapy after my actual talk therapy. I love going to process things while lifting weights. That's just me, not for everyone. I'm talking about going for a walk, especially outside. If you can, there's research showing that even 10 to 20 minutes of walking can significantly reduce stress and improve your mood. And being in nature, even if it's just a park or like there's a few trees or flowers or whatever, it's all been linked to lower cortisol levels and improved mental clarity. So if you are feeling stuck in your head, one of the best things that you can do is get out of it and get into your body. Walk, stretch, move around your space, do literally anything that breaks the cycle of sitting and spiraling. Now, what about your digital environment? Because we can't ignore the role that the phone plays in all of this. If your phone is a constant source of stress, then you need to treat it like it's a constant source of stress and not being a drama queen, because sometimes I literally chuck my phone across the room. Been there, done that. But you don't have to delete everything and like move into a cabin in the woods, but you're going to take control intentionally. Set some time limits, take some breaks, curate your feed. I have all kinds of different things. So my Alexa, she will tell me at 9 p.m. every day, it's time for bed. And that will usually signal me, once I kind of trained that habit, to put my phone away, to maybe turn off the television, to no longer look at my computer, or at least start to disconnect a little bit. My do not disturb goes on from 7 p.m. until 6 a.m. And then quite honestly, I put my D&D on for most of the day as well. So I'm not getting notifications from Twitter anymore. I'm not getting notifications from people that leave nasty comments on my Instagram about how all gays should die, because that used to send me into a spiral. And I had to learn to manage that. If there are accounts that constantly make you feel anxious, overwhelmed, or just bad, mute them. Better yet, unfollow them. You are not obligated to consume content that negatively impacts your mental health. For example, if I'm scrolling through Instagram and I see a really fit guy, hot, and I'm like, oh, like he's doing a workout. That looks good. Oh, I want to look at that. I like that. I like that exercise. That's inspiring. I'm going to try that next time. I'm going to follow them. But if I'm scrolling through and I'm just like, ugh, I need to go to the gym. Why don't I look like that? Like, ugh, gross, Josh. Unfollow. It really makes a difference. And now I barely see the accounts that make me feel bad about myself. But on the flip side of that, right, start adding in content that feels neutral or positive. Not toxic positivity, not fake everything is perfect, but content that gives your brain a break, like dog videos or cooking or like funny little comedy skits. Like we need to rebalance the algorithm here. And here is another tool that doesn't get talked about enough, which is creating small routines. When the world feels unpredictable, routines create a sense of stability and they give your brain something to rely on. It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as having the same morning routine, like making your coffee the same way and then going for a walk, or taking your dog out and listening to your favorite song, or like a little wind down routine at night. These small, consistent actions send a message to your brain that not everything is uncertain. And eventually you start to look forward to them. They are parts of your life that are stable and within your control. Now let's touch on something a little more mental, which is cognitive reframing. This is basically the practice of noticing your thoughts and then gently shifting them, not forcing positivity, but adjusting the narrative, which I say on a gazillion episodes. It's just about reframing stuff. So instead of everything is terrible and overwhelming, maybe it becomes a lot is happening right now and I am feeling overwhelmed, but I can handle what's in front of me. It's a small shift. You're just slightly altering some of the words, but it changes how your brain is going to process the situation because your thoughts influence your emotional response. And when your thoughts are extreme, your emotions tend to follow. And finally, something that might sound obvious, like a lot of this sounds obvious, but we need to reiterate it. We all overlook this in life, but that is rest, real rest, not scrolling, not half watching something while checking your phone, but actual rest because your brain needs downtime to process everything that it's taking in. In the last episode, I think I said that daily we consume as much data as like 16 full-length films. That's a lot. Your brain has to disconnect and like stop thinking, stop watching, stop consuming so that it can process. And if you're constantly filling every quiet moment with more input, it never gets the chance. And you are going to be in a constant state of stress and anxiety. So sometimes the most productive thing that you can do is absolutely nothing. You sit your butt down, you take a freaking breath, and you exist without consuming anything at all. And it feels so uncomfortable at first because we're so used to constant stimulation. But that discomfort is literally your brain just being like, thank you. I'm going to recalibrate for like 30 minutes. I've been waiting. And over time, it gets easier. So bring it all together, okay? When you feel overwhelmed, you don't need to fix everything. You do not need to solve the world. You just need to come back to yourself one little step at a time. Name what you're feeling. Focus on what you can control. Calm your body. Move a little. Adjust your environment. Create small moments of stability. Breathe and rest. And I was going to say, that's it. That's a pretty significant list, but that can all be done in like what? 10, 15 minutes if you're really powering through, but it's a lot simpler than we think. And the more you practice these things, the more natural they become. The more your brain learns that it doesn't have to stay in that constant state of stress. Part 7, motivation when everything feels pointless. I don't know about you, but I have been very unmotivated lately. And for me, that's really hard to say. And I think for a lot of people, that's hard to say out loud. And it's a weird, heavy, slightly existential lack of this motivation that just makes us pretend that everything is okay. Like, you have things to do. You have goals. You have responsibilities, things you should care about. But there are days where you just sit there and you think, like, what is the point? Like, not in a dramatic way. Like, life is not over, but in a low-key, kind of quiet, kind of numb kind of way. Like, why and what is the point? Everything just feels less urgent and a little less exciting and a little harder to care about. And if you've been feeling that way, you're not lazy, you're not unmotivated, you are just responding to the world like I am. Here's the reality. Motivation does not exist in a vacuum. It's heavily influenced by how safe, stable, and hopeful your brain feels. And when the world feels unpredictable, your brain shifts its priorities. It moves out of long-term thinking and into short-term survival mode. So instead of being like, let's plan for the future, let's build something, let's be productive, your brain goes, let's just get through today without spiraling. I think I want some pizza. And honestly, that's pretty fair. There's research in psychology showing that chronic stress and uncertainty can reduce motivation and goal-directed behavior because your brain is conserving energy. It's like, we don't know what's coming, so let's overextend ourselves. And while that might have been helpful in a survival context, in modern life, it can make you feel stuck, stagnant, or like you are falling behind. And then, because we're human, you start judging yourself for it. You're like, why can't I focus? Why am I not as driven as I used to be? Why does everything feel harder? Think back to your early 20s when anything was possible, when you could manifest anything at the drop of the hat. You would work 700 million jobs. Everything was easy breezy. As you got older, we become a little bit jaded. We realize how much crazy shit is going on in the world. We get more educated. We have more access to podcasts, to books, to Google, to people that we learn throughout life. And we do become less motivated because we realize frankly, how shitty the world has been running. And that stresses us out. I kind of wish I could go back to being 22 and just being a little bit delulu. So one of the first things we need to do here is shift the expectation, because if you're expecting yourself to operate at this peak performance while your brain is low-key overwhelmed, you're setting yourself up to feel like you're failing. And you're not failing, you are just adapting. But that doesn't mean that we just give up and lay on the floor forever. Maybe lay down for a hot second, like 20 minutes. It means we adjust to how we approach motivation so it actually works with your brain instead of against it. And don't worry, there's more tools. And that first tool here is something that I swear by, which is micro actions. Because when everything feels very overwhelming or pointless, big goals, huge goals and dreams feel impossible. Like your brain looks at them and goes, Lord, absolutely not. Boy, you are crazy. But small actions, those are manageable until we get out of this state of anxiety and stress. So instead of thinking I need to get my life together or I need to finish this huge project, you bring it all the way down to, what is one small thing I can do right now? You can send one email. You can open one document. You can do 5 minutes of something instead of looking at maybe the 3 hours of that something that you need to do. That's it. Tiny little goal. And here is why it works. Because action creates momentum. There's something called the progress principle, which basically says that even small progress can significantly boost motivation and mood. Your brain loves the feeling of forward movement, even if it's tiny. So once you start, even in a small way, it becomes easier to keep going. Not always perfectly, but more than if you had just sat there thinking about how overwhelming everything is. And that is the key here. Stop waiting to feel motivated before you act, because right now, motivation is not going to show up first. It just doesn't sometimes. A little bit of action has to come first, and then you get that motivation flow flowing. Now let's talk about focus, because I have none of that. Did I already say I have none of that? But I have none of that. Because when you feel that everything is chaotic, it's very easy to zoom out way too far. You start thinking about the state of the world, your future, your finances, everything all at once. Is your body ready for summer? And suddenly doing one simple task like going to the gym or meal prepping, sweeping the floor, doing your laundry, it all feels so meaningless in comparison. Why am I answering emails when the world is on fire? Why am I answering emails or when the woman down the street just lost her husband or something like that? That's my kind of go-to today, I think. That thought has crossed everyone's mind at least once, comparing your tasks that you might deem meaningless as meaningless because somebody else is struggling hard. But here's the reframe. Your job is not to fix the entire world today. Your job is to show up for your life and in the moment that you are in. Because then when you zoom all the way out, everything feels overwhelming. But when you zoom in a little bit, not super, super close, because if we're too zoomed in, it's also a bit overwhelming, but things become manageable. You think right now, in this moment, what actually needs your attention? And the answer is not everything. It's just the next thing. And this is where something called attention anchoring comes into play. It's the practice of bringing your focus back to the present task instead of letting your mind drift into everything else, because your brain will definitely try to go there. It loves to spiral and go elsewhere, but you don't always have to follow your brain down that path. You can literally say okay, there's a lot happening, but right now this is what I'm going to do. And then you just do it. And then you move to the next thing. And suddenly your day feels less overwhelming because you're not carrying everything at once. I often have a very long list of to-dos. Sometimes I get home and I'm exhausted and I'm just like, I just want to sit down. And then I do sit down and then I start thinking about my list. And when I'm thinking about that list, it becomes overwhelming because I've zoomed out into the entire list and I'm lacking motivation to even begin checking any little thing off of that. And then I pause and I go, just try to do one thing. Stand up, get off the sofa, do one thing. And perhaps that was putting the clean dishes away from last night. And then slowly just go through your list. Just look at one thing on your list before you go through the 10 things. So zoom in, think about what you can do in that moment. Let's talk about something that is a little deeper, which is meaning. Because when the world feels chaotic, it can feel like your personal goals feel very small. You've lost the meaning behind any of them, and they feel insignificant. Like, what does this even matter in the grand scheme of life? And that's a very dangerous place to stay because it disconnects you from your own life. So instead of asking, does this matter in the grand scheme of the entire world? Maybe we start asking, does this matter to me in my life? And that's very simple. Like in my apartment, does this specific task matter to me just right now? And the answer is usually yes, because your life is not insignificant. Your goals are not meaningless. Your experiences, your relationships, your growth, all of those things matter, even if they're not making headline news. And when you reconnect with that, when you bring it back to your own values, your own goals, your own reasons for doing things, motivation starts to feel a little more accessible again. Today, I was like, it's opening day for Padres in San Diego. If you know anything about that, it's insane downtown. And I was running late. So there's going to be traffic. There's going to be all the reasons. Opening day, traffic, gym is going to be a little bit busier, but I am trying to get back on my fitness routine because that makes me feel good. That's something that I love doing, calms my mind, makes me feel more confident about my body. I mean, the outcome is always very positive, but I could come up with a million reasons why I shouldn't do it. But I didn't let my mind spiral there. I was like, just go, just drive. You're going to sit in traffic. Put on some music you like, specifically the new Pussycat Dolls song, and just do the one task, and then you'll do all the other ones, unless you decide that you're going to flip out in traffic and have a breakdown, which I did not do today. So you all should be proud of me. But let's bring it back to motivation, okay? Let's be honest for a second. Some days, motivation is just not there. It doesn't exist. And on those days, we lean on something else, which is discipline and structure. And I know that discipline sounds intense, but it doesn't have to be. It can be as simple as having a very loose routine that you follow, even when you don't feel like it. Like motivation is emotional. It comes and goes. Structure is stable, and it holds you up when motivation is dropping or lacking. So maybe you have like a few non-negotiables in your day, not 100,000 things, not a perfect routine, just like a few little anchors here and there. Perhaps you wake up at a certain time, or you walk your dog at a certain time. Maybe you stretch in the morning, or you move your body a little bit, or you go for an evening walk. You just do those little important tasks. That's it. And you don't overthink it. You just do it because it becomes part of your rhythm. And then over time, that consistency builds momentum and it creates a sense of progress, even when you don't feel particularly inspired. I know it sounds cheesy, but we also have to celebrate the small wins because they matter. I personally love celebrating all the small wins, but a lot of times people just brush right past that stuff. They don't celebrate it. Your brain needs positive reinforcement. If you're constantly focusing on what you did not do, what you did not finish, what you are behind on, then you are training your brain to associate effort with disappointment. But if you start acknowledging what you did do, even if it's small, you create different feedback loops. And one feedback loop where effort feels rewarding instead of draining. Again, bring it back to the gym today. My workout wasn't like the best workout I've ever had, but at least I fucking did it. At least I went. It was a little shorter than usual. I tried a few new things that I was like, am I a fan of these? I don't know. I left feeling like could have done better, but at least I did it. I didn't go home and start, pigging out on the couch. Finally, let's talk about this idea that everything feels pointless, like that concept that I brought up a lot throughout this episode. Sometimes that feeling is not about you or your goals. It is just about an emotional state. So when you are overwhelmed and you're stressed and mentally fatigued, your brain literally has a harder time accessing feelings of excitement and purpose and motivation. It's not that those things don't exist in you at all. It's that your brain is too busy managing stress to even tap into those positive feelings. So sometimes the solution is not to push harder, right? It's to step back. It's to reset and give your brain what it needs, which is a bit of rest, a little bit of space, and a bit of regulation. Motivation doesn't come from force. It comes from having enough mental and emotional capacity to engage with your life. So if you're feeling stuck, unmotivated, or like everything is a little bit pointless right now, first, just take a breath. Okay. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need to fix everything. It's impossible to fix everything at one time. You just need to take one small step, and then you take another, and then you do another task, and you make your way through your list. Even if the world feels uncertain, your life still has to move forward. And you still get to shape it just one step and one decision at a time. Part 8, staying hopeful without being delulu. Okay, let's land this plane because we talked about a million things: anxiety, stress, doom scrolling, motivation, how to be the main character in your life. But now, the hardest thing to hold on to when the world feels chaotic is hope. And this is very interesting to me. Not the fluffy kind of Pinterest quote type of hope where everything happens for a reason. Not that kind of hope, okay? We're going to be a little cynical here. I'm talking about real, grounded, slightly skeptical, but still standing hope. That kind of hope. The kind that doesn't ignore reality, but also doesn't let reality completely wreck your spirit. Blind optimism right now feels a little out of touch, but total doom and gloom, also not helpful, although that feels a little bit more in touch. So where the hell do you land? Where is the in-between point? Somewhere in the middle is a place that is called realistic hope. And it's not delusional. It's not toxic positivity. It's choosing to believe that things can improve even when they are messy. Hope is not just some abstract feel-good concept. And this is why I find it so interesting. There's actual science behind just the concept of hope. Psychologists define hope as a combination of two things: the belief that things can get better and the belief that you can play a role in that happening. So it's not passive. It's not just sitting around waiting for the world to fix itself. It is active, it is engaged, and it's like, okay, yeah, things are rough, but I still have some agency here. It's very similar to The Secret, right? It's very similar to manifesting. I used to be obsessed with the concept of The Secret. It's really the concept of hope. You can be hopeful, you can think about your dreams and your goals, but you still have to take action in order to receive them. There was a researcher, Charles Snyder, who basically built his entire career studying hope. And he found that people with higher levels of hope tend to have better mental health, better stress management, and even better physical health outcomes. Not because their lives are easier, but because their mindset helps them navigate challenges differently. They're more likely to problem solve, to adapt, and keep moving forward instead of shutting down. I'm going to give you a little example here. Me, when I apply for jobs, I get excited about them. Even if it's a job that I know I might not be qualified for, I think that I deserve any fucking gig that I want. Delulu, hopeful, maybe something in between. But I'm always like, that's fine. I can do this. I got this. I'm always hopeful that I will get that job. And sometimes I don't. But instead of freaking out, I go, you know what? I am hopeful that something better is going to come, something that is more suited for me, and something always does come that makes complete sense. I have a friend that will apply for jobs and say that she doesn't want to get excited. She's not going to get her hopes up, that she is just going to play it safe. And she has never gotten any of those jobs and has been working the same job since I met her 8 years ago. So there is something to be said for having that positive mindset, believing that something great is coming for you, but also working hard to make that happen. And I know, like, you might be thinking, people that are very hopeful, like, okay, I love that for them, but how do I actually feel hopeful when everything feels like a mess? Which is a great question. First, we need to redefine what hope even looks like, because a lot of people think that hope means believing that everything is going to magically work out perfectly. And that is not it. That is a setup for disappointment. Real hope is way more grounded than that. It's more like, I don't know exactly how this is going to play out, but I believe there are still good outcomes possible, and I'm going to take the steps to make it happen. It leaves room for uncertainty, which is important because let's face it, we are not in control of everything as much as we would like to be, but it also leaves room for possibilities, which is what keeps you from spiraling into that nothing matters mindset. And things get even more interesting because your brain is actually wired with something called a negativity bias, which means it naturally pays more attention to negative information than positive information. And that might not be just from the news. It might be the negative information from feeling bad about your job interview. You're going to focus on the negative points of your interview rather than your positive points of the interview. You're going to focus on any negative things in your day rather than the 500,000 other positive things that happened. From an evolutionary standpoint, this makes sense. Back in the day, noticing threats kept you alive. But in today's world where the threats are just constant news updates or like everyday life things or social media posts, it can make everything feel way worse than it actually is. There have been studies showing that negative news stories are more likely to be remembered, shared, and emotionally impactful than the positive ones, which means even if there are good things happening, and there always are, they get overshadowed, which is probably why that like good news show got canceled because nobody wanted to watch it. So part of maintaining hope is actively correcting for that bias, not by ignoring reality, but by intentionally noticing the full picture. Because if you only consume negative information, your brain will start to believe that's all there is. I'm going to give you another example that just randomly came into my head. People that listen to some of my episodes, when I bring them up or experiences up that they may relate to themselves or think I'm talking about them, they take those things negatively. They're focusing on the negatives. But there's also a lot of positive things that I say about those same people in episodes that completely flies over their head. So if you're one of those people, I recommend going to listen to all 90 episodes and pick out all the positive things I've said about you. But it's just a fact. That is just human nature. That is the way our brains work. So really, you have to curate your perspective on everything, not in a live, laugh, love, like sign from home goods bullshit kind of way, but in a protect your mental health kind of way. And really in a realistic kind of way, because not everything is negative and terrible. There are serious issues happening in the world, but there are also people that are solving problems and helping others, creating change, building communities, making progress. Both things exist at the same time. And if you only focus on one side, your perception becomes skewed. So maybe part of your routine becomes intentionally seeking out stories of progress and innovation and kindness, like whatever reminds you that the world is not just chaos and disaster. Those stories exist. And maybe I will add that to like my weekly list of finding positive news stories. Perhaps, oh, that's actually a good idea. Maybe I'll do some episodes about more positive things. I did do one about more positive LGBTQ plus news stories and progressive things that were happening to support the community. But I definitely think focusing in on that is quite important. So I'll add that to my to-do list. Now, let's talk about control. Because one of the biggest drivers of anxiety and hopelessness is feeling like you have no control over anything. And to some extent, that is true. There are things happening in the world that you cannot change on your own. And I struggle to say that because I think, did I say this earlier in this episode or it was the last episode? I just struggle to say that, you can't change the world on your own because I believe that you can, but you have to put in the work. But we're talking about right now, the next 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, you're not going to become the next president that is going to, bring everything back to a little bit of reality. And what's that phrase? Drain the swamp. You got to put the work into that. But we're thinking immediate future. You can't just fix the world on your own in the next 24 hours. But of course, there are things that you can control, and focusing on those things is what restores a sense of agency. So you can control how much news you consume. You can control what you eat and put in your body. You can control how you respond to stress. You can control how you treat people. You can control the small actions that you take in your everyday life. And I know those things probably sound small compared to everything else, but over time, they add up and they create stability in your immediate environment, which makes the bigger picture feel less overwhelming. There's also research showing that taking action, small ones, local action, can significantly reduce feelings of helplessness, whether that's volunteering, supporting a cause, helping a friend, or just being a decent human. in your day-to-day life. Action creates a sense of purpose, which feeds into hope. I started this podcast, so I felt like I was doing something. I always donate when I'm checking out at the grocery store or the pet store when it's like round up $1, $2, whatever. Sometimes if there's a homeless person in front of me at the grocery store or behind me in line at the grocery store and they have a few things, I will buy it for them. That doesn't happen very often, but there's something in me that makes me feel like I'm doing like a little bit of good when I do that. So the small actions, but they're meaningful. Okay, let's address this elephant in the room, okay? Because what if things don't get better? What if the things that you are worried about actually happen? And I cannot sit here in my closet where I'm recording this right now and tell you that nothing bad will ever happen because that's completely unrealistic. But what I will say is you are more capable of handling things than you think that you are. There's something called psychological resilience, which is basically your ability to adapt and recover from difficult situations. And the interesting part is that people consistently underestimate their own resilience. We tend to think, if that happens, I won't be able to handle it. But research shows, studies show that most people are actually pretty good at adapting over time. I always use the example of when you go through a breakup. You feel heartbroken. You can't sleep, but you want to sleep. You can't eat, but you're hungry. Like for a lot of people like me who are very emotionally driven, it's hard. It's gut-wrenching. Sometimes, depending on what that relationship was, it feels like the world is fucking ending. But as time progresses, you get the fuck over it, you pick yourself up, and you move on. And just that shows resilience. I also use the example of women giving birth because if they didn't have resilience, if they weren't badasses, they would only have one child and be like, no, thank you. We won't be doing this again. But we always pick ourselves back up and we keep moving on. Remind yourselves of those times when shit did hit the fan, when the things you were fearing did happen, but you moved on from them. It could have been last year, 5 years ago, a decade ago, or last week. You're moving on from it. So hope is not just about believing that bad things won't happen. It's about trusting that if they do, you're going to figure it out. You always do. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not immediately, but eventually you do. And that little shift from everything has to go right to I can handle what comes is huge. It takes the pressure off needing certainty and it replaces it with confidence in your ability to navigate uncertainty. Now, how do you actually build hope on a day-to-day basis? So maybe you limit your exposure to constant negativity. You do not need to be plugged into your phone or your TV 24/7 in order to be informed. It's not going to change that much day by day. 2, you're going to balance your input. If you're consuming heavy news, also consume something that reminds you of the good in the world. 3, you take action where you can, even small actions, little donations. Go pick up trash, volunteer your time. 4, focus on your immediate reality, your life, your people, your environment, things that you can control right now. 5, remind yourself that uncertainty does not equal doom. It just means you don't know yet. And there is a lot that we don't know yet, but it is not doom. And maybe most importantly, give yourself permission to just enjoy your life. We're only here once. Like, seriously, just be like, you know what? Fuck it. I'll do my laundry tomorrow. I'm going to live my life and enjoy it. I'm going to turn my phone off. I'm not paying attention to any more mega bullshit for the next 48 hours because I'm going to go laugh and live and love, live, laugh, love. Oh God, I brought it back to home goods. I think a lot of people feel guilty for feeling happy or excited when there's all these serious things happening. It's like, how can we go out and have fun and laugh and plan things when everything elsewhere that we are seeing on the internet is so insanely heavy? And the answer to that, to how can I have fun and live my life when literally there's people dying in the world, is you're allowed to. And in fact, it's necessary because you cannot produce positive change unless you take care of yourself first. And joy is not ignorance. It's not denial. It's just part of being human, and maintaining your own well-being does not take away from the seriousness of global issues. If anything, it gives you the energy and clarity to engage with them in a healthier way. And that is where we're going to wrap up today's episode, today's ride. We've covered so many things, all the global chaos, but hopefully I gave you a lot of tools, how to stay motivated, how to find yourself again, how to stay calm. I use all of these things quite often. Sometimes I forget about them. Sometimes I spiral. Pick one. give it a try. You don't have to just do all the things at once. Like, if we've learned anything in this episode, you cannot take all the tools that I just gave you and do them all instantly. Just try one, see what happens, revisit the episode if you forget, take some notes, just start reclaiming your main character energy. That is the biggest takeaway tool. So don't forget to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at _hotairpod for more little tips and laughs and my hot takes and opinions. I will be back to posting way more in April because the podcast studio is almost ready and it looks so cute and I can't wait to share it with everybody. And visit me at hotairwithjoshuarobert.com to shop my merch, submit your listener stories, and share your topic suggestions. And that is it for today. So thank you for listening to Hot Air. I am Joshua Robert, and you should stay anxiety-free, stress-free, a little bit zen. Go back to being the main character in your life. Find some fucking joy. Find that motivation. Go have a good time with your friends this weekend. And I will see you next Tuesday.